All right, if you haven't already seen this or heard about this by now, PC Gamer got first dibs on the Everquest 2024 roadmap. So maybe PC Gamer could get an extra 500 visitors for traffic purposes or something. I don't know, there's not a lot of people left that play this game. I can't imagine that being a high value item for something like PC Gamer. I think they write like a news article, it probably gets a lot more traffic than the Everquest 2024 roadmap. But it's out and there's people talking about it. And the one thing I want to point out that's in this 2024 roadmap is in May here. Now I don't really care about any of the other stuff, all that normal crap that they normally do, but in May 2024, new progression servers. Rule set to be announced. See how it says servers, plural. That means we are most likely, if not for sure, going to see at least a free trade loot server. I would not be surprised if it did come out with random bonus loot. I would not be surprised if they have a server that has encounter locking, maybe the same server, and then they'll release their standard crappy vanilla whatever server where people want to play the hardcore as close to the original mode as possible and then quit after Planes of Power. So it seems like when they release multiple servers, one's going to be more experimental, one is going to be that traditional crap that just dies down the road. As you can see in any of my population tracking, that all those vanilla servers are long since dead and they could probably just get rid of them, except they don't want to piss off the 10 people left playing on them. Okay, there's like 300 people on each server. So this is the roadmap that is actually on Daybreak Games website. I did see one, I think maybe on PC Gamer, or someone featured it in another video where it did talk about merging Thornblade and Mischief. Now I don't see that in this one, but that is something that I had suggested that they probably should do to keep that random bonus loot server alive into the future, because they were released at the same time and they're on the same expansion. Merging those two servers will be really beneficial, and actually having a TLP that makes it to the live version without going completely dead. Can't say for sure, but there's a pretty good chance that we're going to see at least a free trade server. The free trade servers that they did release are some of the popular servers, Mischief coming up on House of Thule expansion and still the second leading TLP, only behind Oakwind, and only because Planes of Power came out. It was back above Oakwind, and I'm sure it will go back above Oakwind soon as the Planes of Power rush fades out. And furthermore, Furiona Vi, the live server, is a free trade server. That is also the top populated server for Everquest on the live side. If you look at it, free trade is what people want. That's where they're playing on the live servers. That's the TLP that's made it the furthest. And that's most likely what one of the two servers are that are going to be delivered with a classic version of Everquest. There's a crowd of people that don't like free trade servers because they don't feel like people should be able to buy their way into the game. I think that's horseshit. This game's 25 years old now. People are grinding at work if they want to take their money and then convert that through the chrono system into actual items to catch up, especially on a TLP that's popping expansions every 2 to 3 months. Like people that work full time, even though they've boosted experience and a lot of other stuff, like a lot of people don't get to actually experience that, and especially if you join like a raiding guild. When I was on Mischief, the raiding guilds were pretty hardcore. And it felt like the raids were so much that sometimes you just want to log in and group, or log in and play, or log in and box some stuff, or just go back and do some old content and just kind of hang out. But everything was about, you know, you go to work, you log in for your raid nights, and then it's like you don't have time to actually play the game. So if you actually had to spend time on the raids farming your own items on a TLP in 2024, like, I get it if that's like the point of the server, it's not free trade, but you shouldn't be hating on the people that play free trade. You shouldn't be hating on the people that don't work or spend extra time after work farming those items to sell to those players, because all they're doing is providing goods and services. Now I know that that gets a little crazy with the cheating and the exploits and other things like that, and I understand that point of view. They should do a better job of cracking down on cheating and the automation and such, but if someone is actually willing to spend their time at the computer, regardless of how many accounts they're paying for, how many characters playing, if it's them playing, they want to farm some old raid items to sell, and somebody wants to buy them, I think that's perfectly fine. And so does Daybreak, because they made Chronos. They made Chronos because it was happening in the black market. So now they have something that's worth game time that is actually being used as a medium of exchange. So now they're selling Chronos and getting their fair share of the cut. So I don't think that we're gonna see that go away. I think that's what the game is now. I think that's how they pay for a lot of the stuff. Chronos gotta come from somewhere, even though there's a black market for cheaper. Once those start getting consumed, somebody at some point buys the Chronos. So whether or not you like free trade or not, people using their actual cash to buy their way into the game has always existed. They would just buy accounts back in the day that were already geared out. I think just acknowledging that it exists and allowing it to happen and supporting it with Chronos is actually really good, especially for TLPs, because the expansions are so short. And if you're working or maybe you get busy during the summer, you don't really have time to go and explore the expansion, make a couple characters, power level your own characters, take a group, and you shouldn't be just focusing on the end game content in every expansion unless you want to. And for me, it's not as fun just focusing on the end game content. What I really like to do in the game is I like to go get some high-end items and come back and just beat the shit out of stuff and farm some shit and maybe do some fucking trade skills or try to one group something that shouldn't be one groupable. Like, that's the type of stuff I enjoy. And for all I care, once I do the raid once, like I've seen it like maybe a couple times just to get the hang of the events and some of the mechanics, but to sit there and just pound your head off the desk and keep farming something for items, absolutely insane on a TLP. It was absolutely insane back when there wasn't TLPs and it was live, but we had a whole year between expansions. There wasn't really that much else to do. Even if you worked full time, you could still get enough time to raid and find time for other stuff to do in the game. I am in full support of people spending their time farming items to sell, and I am actually happy that some people make a part-time or full-time income, or even if they're just funding their accounts, making that stuff available for people that work or even just have money that they want to spend toward the game is beneficial to the game. You know, more Chronos get sold by the company makes money, they keep the game running, and I see that as a positive thing. Now, obviously, the cheating, the AFK farming, the bots, they should crack down on all that. And I do think that having those things in the game, Chronos in general, to promote and give incentive to people to exploit and cheat and hack and all that funky stuff, because there's this monetary aspect involved in games. And that's just the way that everything has always been, not just Everquest, but any games or anything in general. If something takes a lot of time to get and somebody else is good at something or doing something else, then they can take their money to basically hire or buy the time of somebody else that went out and farmed that stuff. It's not like these items are coming for free. It's not like someone's not putting the time in. The time's getting put in. You're just basically paying someone for their time, and that's how everything works. Mutually beneficial. And as I said, hacking, exploits, and all that cheating stuff, they're gonna have to do a better job of cracking down on that. But I do like the free trade servers. I did like bonus loot, random loot. I felt like the bonus loot and the random loot made things less lucrative, so there was more of them. You couldn't hold items ransom, you couldn't buy out an entire market. I remember when I played Everquest and I made a warrior twink, and I think that Lectum was out, that the Blade of Carnage was like the best item that you could buy to tank. There's nothing else you could really get unless you're gonna raid SSRA, and if you're not in a raid guild and you wanna have a twink that can tank, you need a Blade of Carnage. Well, there's only 1, 2, 3 for sale on Praxis, which is where I played, and they're millions of plat, which is a shit ton of money back then before they had Chronos. I don't like that aspect of it. I get that the item should be more rare because it's harder to get, but you know, there's no reason there couldn't have been 20 Blades of Carnage for sale at a time, and that somebody with a reasonable effort would be able to acquire one instead of it being like this high-class lucrative item. And I also think that it fixed some of the botting aspects of it, the AFK farming, because people could sit on single spawns that only drop certain items, and when they did the random loot, those items were dropping elsewhere and everything being tradable. I think it got away from people mage farming PHs because they couldn't lock down one single item. Now there's still things in camps that exist where that happens, but I think it lessened a lot. I think on the random free trade server, things more or less went to small man raids, or they would use their DZs, their instances, to do a raid themselves or with a few people, and then they would sell those raid items. So everything kind of moved to that. And I think it's good that they released 2 servers, because there's a whole crowd that is against free trade. They don't like the pay to play. They don't like the chrono rush. So I think having that classic experience released on a regular server and then having a free trade server with whatever special rules is a good thing. I really believe that we are finally going to see another free trade server. Hopefully with some of the stuff patched and fixed that Mischief went through, where Plane of Fire mini bosses were dropping phase 4 time loot, and there were a bunch of weird things like that where the random loot wasn't just equivalent mobs, it was like up tiers, and that should never happen. You should not be killing a Plane of Fire mini boss and getting phase 4 time loot. I didn't like that aspect of it, but I do think it's a good thing. And in the roadmap with the announcement of servers, I think we're gonna see a free trade server, and I think it would be pretty cool if it used some of the rules from Mischief, and I do like the encounter locking feature for Train. So there'll be more videos on this as we get closer to release. They'll probably announce the official rule sets maybe a month before. And if you're not aware of how people are cheating on TLPs, maybe you're just coming back and new to this, I highly recommend that you check out this video right here to learn how people are cheating on the Everquest TLPs.